The time is precisely 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Dulmin Samarasinghe and read by Chandima Virakon. Headlines. People requested to act with patience to save the country from the pandemic. The finance draft bill passed in Parliament by a majority of 90 votes. Government loses 1,600 billion rupees of revenue due to COVID-19 pandemic. Minister Ramesh Patirana says that the government will not continue with the emergency regulations. The first national streaming hub inaugurated at the Education Ministry. In news overseas, Taliban fire warning shots at protest in Kabul. In sports news, the third one-day international between Sri Lanka and South Africa is underway at the R. Premadasa International Stadium in Colombo. Local stories in detail. The Mahanayaka of Asgiri chapter, Most Venerable Varakagoda Jnanaratna Thero, says the people should act with patience to save the country from the pandemic. He said that everyone should be united to overcome the challenges, leaving aside race, religion, political and other differences. The Thero said that the people should follow health guidelines to get the results of the efforts of the health officials and the government to control the pandemic. He pointed out that the country cannot be kept closed down continuously to control the spread of the pandemic. The finance draft bill has been passed in Parliament by a majority of 90 votes. 134 members have voted in favour of the bill, while 44 have voted against the bill. Sri Lanka Securities and Exchange Commission draft bill, proposals under Essential Public Services Act, order under Production Levies Special Provision Act and 3 regulations under Imports and Exports Act were passed in Parliament today. Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa told Parliament today that government has lost a total revenue of 1,600 billion rupees this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking during the debate on regulations imposed under the Financial Bill and Export-Import Control Bill, the minister said 70% of indirect tax revenue has been recorded since the current lockdown was imposed. He said the revenue received from the Inland Revenue Department, Customs and Excise Department had gone down drastically because of the lockdown. The minister said revenue has dropped drastically compared to expenditure. This is not totally due to the pandemic, as Sri Lanka's state expenditure has exceeded the revenue for centuries. He said they have decided to use foreign assistance with utmost diligence and will only work with institutions such as the World Bank and Asian Development Bank. He added that Sri Lanka will not agree to political-based conditions any donor would impose. Co-Cabinet spokesman Ramesh Patirana says that the government does not hope to continue with emergency regulations for a long time. He said emergency regulations were introduced to control problems related to food items in the country. He pointed out that people's rights, including freedom of expression and freedom to protest, are protected in the country. He added that people are opposing unfair trade practices. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with the local stories, the first national streaming hub was inaugurated at the Education Ministry today under the government's plan to bring school education closer to children through television. The national streaming hub has been established for the children whose education has been disrupted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. While inaugurating the event, Education Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said the broadcasting centre was established with the latest technical facilities with high-speed internet facility as well. The Broadcasting Centre transmits all subject-related programs produced by the National Institute of Education to high-quality TV channels and web channels in a timely manner, covering the syllabus. Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires said Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa will be addressing an international symposium at the University of Bologna, Italy, during this weekend. The Prime Minister will be delivering the keynote address at the opening session. Minister Pires said that this opportunity will be one of the best avenues to showcase the country's ancient history and cultural heritage to the world, as many European leaders will be participating in the symposium. He added that the Prime Minister will also hold discussions with Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi and Italian Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio. Minister Ramesh Patirana says that he expects that the teachers and principals will return to work accepting the solution given by the government for their salary issue. Co-Cabinet spokesman Minister Patirana mentioned this at the media briefing held today to announce Cabinet decisions. He noted that the teachers and principals would receive the proposed interim allowance with their September salary. The relevant proposal will be presented by the Minister of Finance in Parliament through the budget for the year 2022 in November. He said until then it was proposed to provide an interim allowance of 5,000 rupees per month as a relief and incentive for their activities including online teaching. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga says it will be possible to lift present quarantine curfew and travel restrictions after achieving vaccination targets. He mentioned this before a group of Russian journalists. The minister is in Russia at present to take part in a tourism promotion program organized by the Tourism Development Authority. He said that tourists can visit 6,000 places of historic value and entertainment in Sri Lanka. Rejecting the media reports, the Environment Ministry has emphasized that the Crudia zelenica plant has not been removed from the 2020 Red Data list. They said 5 extinct plants from Sri Lanka were included in the Red Data list published in 2012. Crudia zelenica is one of them. It was this plant that caused the controversy in the construction of a highway. To end the local news, the headlines again. People requested to act with patience to save the country from the pandemic. The finance draft bill passed in Parliament by a majority of 90 votes. Government loses 1,600 billion rupees of revenue due to COVID-19 pandemic. Minister Ramesh Patirana says that the government will not continue with the emergency regulations. The first national streaming hub inaugurated at the Education Ministry. That ends the local news.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Veda Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
In the main news story, health authorities say that more than 80% of the above 30 population has received the first dose of a COVID vaccine and 60% of the entire population has received at least a single dose of a vaccine and 40% of the entire population have been fully vaccinated. Sri Lanka has administered a total number of 21,908,847 doses of COVID vaccines by yesterday. 12,729,601 people have received at least one dose of the COVID vaccine and 9,179,246 people have completed full vaccination. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya. Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
And now in Watchlight.
Peradeniya University has been ranked among the best 500 universities in the world according to the Times Higher Education World University Rankings 2022. This is the third consecutive year that the Peradeniya University was ranked in a group of 401 to 500. The Times Higher Education World University Rankings 2022 include more than 1,600 universities across 99 countries and territories, making them the largest and most diverse university rankings to date. That ends Watchlight.
World News.
Headlines of the world news. Taliban fire warning shots at protest in Kabul. Vietnam man gets 5 years jail for spreading COVID. Minor girls paraded naked in India's rain ritual. The Taliban have fired shots to disperse the crowd at a large protest in the Afghan capital Kabul. Video footage from the scene shows people running to safety while heavy gunfire can be heard in the background. Thousands of protesters took to the streets on Tuesday to demand women's rights and denounce Taliban rule. Protesters also chanted anti-Pakistan slogans as many believe neighbouring Pakistan supports the Taliban, which the country denies. A Vietnamese man has been sentenced to jail for 5 years for flouting COVID-19 rules and spreading the virus. A court found Le Van Thuy guilty of transmitting dangerous infectious diseases to 8 people, one of whom eventually died. Until recently, Vietnam had been largely successful in keeping COVID out with tight restrictions, but infections have surged since June, with an outbreak fueled by the more contagious Delta variant. 6 minor girls in central India were stripped and paraded naked as part of a village ritual to summon rains. The incident took place in a drought-parched village in the Bundelkhand region of Madhya Pradesh state. Videos that went viral on social media reportedly showed young girls walking naked with a wooden shaft on their shoulders which had frogs tied to it. Locals believe the ritual will appease the rain god and bring rainfall to the region. To end the world news, the headlines again. Taliban fire warning shots at protest in Kabul. Vietnam man gets 5 years jail for spreading COVID. Minor girls paraded naked in India's rain ritual. That ends the world news.
Development News is brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number 1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
Moving on to development news. In line with the government's policy of developing regional industrialization, the Board of Investment recently entered into a supplementary agreement with J.J. Mills Lanka to lay foundation to an initial investment of $4 million to establish operations in the Kappalthurai industrial zone in Trincomalee. A subsidiary of J.J. Mills India, this is the 5th expansion project of its kind for J.J. Mills Lanka, which was established in 2000. That ends the development news.
Development News was brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melva RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melva RB500, number 1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
Moving on to the sports news, it's cricket and tennis. And in cricket, the third one-day international between Sri Lanka and South Africa is underway at R. Premadasa International Stadium in Colombo. Winning the toss and deciding to bat first, Sri Lanka scored 203 for 9 wickets in 50 overs. And in tennis, Novak Djokovic was again made to fight hard as he beat American wildcard Jenson Brooksby to reach the US Open quarterfinals and keep his calendar Grand Slam hopes alive. The world number 1 overcame a poor first set to win a bruising encounter 1-6, 6-2, 6-2, 6-2. He was pushed all the way by Brooksby, who was well supported by the full crowd on Arthur Ashe Stadium. Meanwhile, Maria Sakkari came from a set down to beat Bianca Andreescu in a grueling encounter and reach her first US Open quarter-final. The Greek 17th seed beat Canada's 2019 champion Andreescu 6-7, 2-7, 7-6, 8-6, 6-3 in a match lasting almost 3.5 hours, finishing at 2:15 New York time. It was the latest ever finish in US Open women's singles history. That ends sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
On business news, Union Assurance closed the first half of the financial year as the fastest growing life insurer, achieving a 65% growth in regular new business premiums among the top 5 life insurers in Sri Lanka amid a pandemic-affected business landscape. The company recorded a gross written premium of 6.5 billion rupees during the 6 months ending June 30th, 2021, with an increase in top-line growth of 29% compared to the corresponding period of last year. That ends the business news.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of...
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
And on economic news, the asset quality of the non-bank finance company sector, which made gains in the quarter ended in March 2021, deteriorated in the following June quarter, falling in lockstep with the banking sector asset quality. According to the latest central bank data, the non-bank finance company sector gross non-performing advances ratio deteriorated sharply to 13.04% by the end of June 2021 from 11.29% in March 2021. That ends economic news.
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
Weather report.
And finally on the weather report, the Met Department says showers or thundershowers will occur at times in Sabaragamu and central provinces. Several spells of showers will occur in western and northwestern provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the Uva province and in Batiklo and Ampara districts, particularly in the evening or at night. Fairly strong gusty winds up to 50 km per hour can be expected in the western slopes of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. That ends the weather report. And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. People requested to act with patience to save the country from the pandemic. The finance draft bill passed in Parliament by a majority of 90 votes. Government loses 1,600 billion rupees of revenue due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Minister Ramesh Patirana says that the government will not continue with the emergency regulations. The first national streaming hub inaugurated at the Education Ministry. In foreign news, Taliban fire warning shots at protest in Kabul. In sports, the third one-day international between Sri Lanka and South Africa is underway at R. Premadasa International Stadium in Colombo. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news.